So we're going to be looking at nice guys in relationships today, and particularly we're going to be looking at the three critical mistakes that I've seen them make over the last 12 plus years of coaching, 13 years of coaching, and particularly the mistakes they make that they think are actually good things to do, healthy things to do. We're going to have a look at that. I will talk a little bit about a healthy boundaries program, a course that I run. I'm not going to be pitching it or selling it majorly, but the stuff we're doing in today's free workshop is from that course. So if you want to go deeper, you can check out the course, and I'll give you guys a little coupon to get a discount on that. But I'm not going to mention it too often, okay? Try and make this free and actually helpful for you guys. For those of you on TikTok, I'm going to keep looking up because that's where my camera and my notes are, so enjoy my nostrils. Cool. So, nice guys, people pleasers, nice guy syndrome, they destroy their relationships in ways that they think are healthy. And that's why they find it a mystery as to why their relationships don't keep working out. And there's three particular limiting beliefs and the behavior that comes from that really does all the damage. So one is thinking that love is enough, and therefore there's no need to set boundaries or speak your mind about certain things. The other is that being an easygoing person is really attractive, and relieving the tension is good for relationships. Staying calm and rational, defending themselves logically during an argument is healthy and is good for the relationship. Those things all sound very good on paper. They all sound like great ideas, but they are terrible and they destroy relationships, as I learned the hard way. So what actually happens when you engage in these ideas is you kill attraction, and you end up with that dead bedroom kind of relationship. You build up resentment on both sides. It slowly creeps up unnoticeably until it becomes contempt and the relationship is doomed. Communication becomes very fake and superficial, and the connection dies, and eventually your partner just kind of checks out because you're like a nice flatmate, but you're not really a partner. So we're going to look at why this happens, the beliefs that lead it to happen, the fears that cause us to behave in this way, and what we can do differently to stop this kind of disaster from unfolding. So hopefully you'll be able to apply it. If you're currently in a relationship and doing these things, you'll be able to rectify it and fix it. And if you're just getting out of a relationship or single, you can learn your lessons for next time and not repeat the same mistakes. That's what I'm hoping, and we'll see how it's going to go. So I'm going to break it down to those three parts. They're all things that I used to do. They're all things I'm a master of doing, I guess you could say. And we're going to look at why they don't work and what to do differently. Cool. Alrighty, well, let's dive into it. I'll start with a little bit of a backstory as to how I discovered that I was doing these things and why it wasn't working for me. It was the weirdest year. I'd finally gotten over my funk with women in my early 20s, where I just couldn't get anywhere with women. I was really struggling with relationships and dating. Nothing was happening. And then things started happening. I made some breakthroughs, got a bit bolder, things started happening. But girls would just lose interest in me in about 3 weeks. And it was like 3 weeks to the day. It was the weirdest thing. Like 21 days, and I'd get a text saying, oh, this isn't really working out. From a girl who just a couple of weeks ago previously had been very enthusiastic about being my girlfriend. And I thought, like, I finally locked it in. I found a good one, you know. And this happened like 5 times in a row in a single year. It was bizarre. Me and my friends were all talking about how weird it was, that it was always like 21 days exactly. And I just couldn't get my head around why this was happening. It just didn't make sense to me. You know, I was so easygoing, so fun, so comfortable to be around. Who wouldn't want that, right? That was a story I told myself, and I just couldn't figure out why these girls just went cold on me after a few weeks. And it was always the same. First, they would reject sex unexpectedly after a robust sex life. And then I'd get ghosted for a couple of days, and then I'd get a text saying it's over. It was like exactly the same. 5 times in a row, like no variations, Groundhog Day. It was weird. So I felt like I was doing everything right, and I didn't realize I was actually doing everything wrong, essentially. That what was happening was not bad luck. It was not the girls being bad people. It was me. I was causing this problem. I just couldn't see it because I thought I was doing the right things. My kind of reliance on love being enough led to covert contracts where I wouldn't directly state what I wanted. I'd just kind of hope it would happen because I didn't want to rock the boat, and I just assumed if someone loved me, they'd just know what I want and they'd give it to me. And I thought my agreeableness was going to make people very comfortable around me and want to spend lots of time with me. Like I'd be this fucking oasis after the rough desert of the world. And I didn't realize it made me bland and one-dimensional and boring with no emotional variation to actually feel something real in the relationship. And even when I did stand up for myself, it was in this insecure, defensive, rational way. I try to convince people to like me. I try to convince them that I was right or a good person. And I'd quite often win those arguments, so to speak. There wouldn't even be arguments. I'd just batter the person down with qualifying myself. And I thought, I'm really standing up for myself. But what I was really doing is just being try-hard, insecure, overly rational. And it gives off little boy vibes instead of man vibes. And I just didn't realize that all of this stuff was sabotaging my relationships and causing the very problem that I couldn't understand. And it's funny because when I look back at it now, it's like, of course it wasn't working. Like, why did I think that was going to work? It's insane. But I just didn't know any better. So today I'm going to talk about what I've learned since then and hopefully help you guys avoid making the same mistakes that I've made, or maybe understand mistakes you've made in the past and why being a so-called good person didn't quite work out the way you thought it would. Okay. So, by the way, I did promise you guys a discount on the course. I was mentioned there once. I'm going to do a little comment on YouTube there with the link. Or if you're on TikTok here, you can just send me a DM and I'll send you the link to the course if you want to get into it deeper. Otherwise, we're going to cover heaps of great practical stuff just in this workshop alone for free. So let's go to the first belief, which is that love is enough. I don't think this is strictly a nice guy syndrome belief. I think a lot of people have this. Anybody who's frustrated and disappointed with their partner for not meeting their needs without you having to ask for it, that would be a great example of believing that love is enough. Just think, if someone loves you, then you won't have to ever ask directly. You won't have to ever tell them what your preferences are, what your boundaries are. You won't ever need to have a difficult conversation. They should just know. And of course, that leads to the belief that if they should just know and they're not doing it, then they must not really love me. They must be bad people. They're trying to hurt me. So it just comes from a belief that people who treat each other right, it's because of love and love alone. And if you're having any conflict in your relationship, it's a sign of failure. I've got an interesting thing. I was talking about this with some of my clients this week. My parents had what I thought was a great marriage, and they're still married now, and it is a great marriage now. But I never saw them fight once. They were always just nice to each other. And so that set a role modeling for me to think that being nice to each other all the time is what a healthy relationship looks like. That any form of conflict must be a failure. I'd go to my friend's house and his parents are arguing all the time and then they get divorced. And I'm like, see, if you argue at all, it means the relationship's over. That's the belief I formed from actually watching two people who got along really well. I didn't realize that was actually hurting me. When I carried forward into teenage and adult years and tried to have relationships, I thought, man, if we have even one fight, it means we're not right for each other. So it becomes this belief like there is no need to directly ask or guide my partner in any way. They will just anticipate my needs like fucking psychics, and boundaries would ruin the relationship. If I was to state something, it's going to cause abandonment. It'll ruin the relationship slowly over time, so better not do that. Now, why do we believe such a ridiculous thing? Why do we think that loving someone's going to lead to the behavior we prefer? Yeah? Why do so many people think that? We have to realize that it doesn't work, because love does not remove the potential for conflict. If you've ever had siblings, you've fought with them. In fact, if you pay close attention, you'll see that everybody who's in love has conflict. The idea that being really into somebody stops you from having conflict with them is such a ludicrous idea with no evidence to support it. So why we believe it is quite a mystery, but obviously we've misread some sort of evidence in the world out there. I mean, even if you guys really get along well, you will have different preferences. You will have mismatch of moods at certain times. One of you will be up while the other's down, and so on. You're going to have some different interests. Your entire DNA strand is not perfectly aligned. You're not twins. There are some things where you're off and they're on, and they're off and you're on, and those things are going to meet at some point. So the idea that you could go without conflict is ludicrous. If nothing else, you're going to have misunderstandings. You know how hard it is to put your deepest thoughts and feelings into words? Like, you can't even get it right, and you think they're going to interpret it correctly? With their beliefs and biases and worries and fears, they're going to hear what you're saying exactly right every single time? What ego must you have to believe that? No, they're going to misunderstand you, and that's going to lead to conflict. Right? There will be emotional distancing. You will have different interpretations of the baseline rules of a relationship. You think that your version of respect is something that other people understand and also follow themselves. No, they've got a different definition for that word. It might be slightly different. It might be well different. They've had different relationship experiences and come up with different rules and practices and methods to what constitutes a good relationship to you. You think there's going to be no conflict between the two different methods at all? That's insane. You're going to come in with different ideas of respect and compassion and what makes a good relationship and what the other person should know and so on. You're going to come in with so many differences there. And when those ideas meet for the first time, there is going to be a clash of some kind. There's going to be a difference. So if you're going to a relationship hoping that that never happens, then you're incredibly naive, as I was. But even when you notice these clashes, you think, well, I'll just not speak up about them. Let's not rock the boat. Let's keep the good vibes going. We're having such a good time. I don't want to ruin it. Instead of realizing that not speaking up is what ruins it in the long term. See, those conflicts will come up and you'll be left with a choice. You'll be at this crossroads. Do I bring it up and ruin the vibe, possibly lose this person? This conflict might be a deal breaker. Do I go there? Or do I pretend I'm okay? Do I convince myself that this isn't actually a conflict? You know, they have some expectation of you that you think is unreasonable, and then you think, oh, if I say that's unreasonable, they're going to get really mad at me. Maybe it is reasonable. I mean, I could see their side of the story, and it's only fair enough that I compromise. And before you know it, you're changing your own beliefs or trying to, pretending to. So there's no need to bring anything up. Now you can convince yourself, hey, we never need to fight because we actually always agree on everything. Translation, I change what I believe so it makes an agreeable position so I don't have to fight. And this leads to covert contracts, which is you expect things without asking for them for directly. You think they should just know and deliver. And then you hold it against them and you resent them for it. And that silent resentment is probably the number one killer of relationships. You know how it feels both ways when you expect something of them and they disappoint you and they don't deliver. But also how mad you are when they expected something of you without stating it directly and then they're disappointed at you that you didn't deliver, how unfair that feels. Well, imagine if you're both doing that both ways every day. You really think that relationship's going to survive on love alone? You really think that won't poison the love, ruin it over time? As you start to tell yourself a story about how your partner doesn't care about you and isn't considerate of your needs and how you're the one that always has to sacrifice, you think that story is going to keep the love going? There's also the problem of dead bedroom, which we'll talk more about in the next section. But conflict and tension is an important part of ongoing attraction. If something is nice all the time, it becomes bland. You think about movies that you like to watch. Do you ever watch a movie that has no conflict arc in it? That has no range of emotion? No, in fact, all of your favorite films have a big range of conflict in them. That's what keeps us hooked, engaged. That's what we're attracted to. I'm not to say we're attracted to chaos, though some people are. But we want fucking range. We want to feel something. And so if you're holding it all in all the time, there's no range, and the sexual tension dies. Scorekeeping starts to arise. You start to think like, I've done all this for them and they're not reciprocating. You haven't fucking asked, but you think I don't need to ask. They should just know because they love me. And now you're starting to tally it up. I did this and I did this and I did this, and they never do anything. You start to tell yourself the story. At the same time, they've got the same story about you. And it makes as much sense to them as yours does to you because you're both doing this. I've worked with so many people in relationships, and I've never seen it where this is only one-sided. Covert contracts always go both ways. People seem to find the right fit. So over time, you're left with this dilemma. Do I speak up and say love isn't enough? I need you to do more than just be someone who's in love with me. I need behaviors. Or do I try to adjust who I am to make it so I'm okay with everything they do and don't do? And a nice guy will choose option B. He'll start to beat himself into submission to make himself okay with not asking for what he wants by pretending he doesn't want it to himself. He'll pretend he's okay with things that he can't tolerate. He'll pretend he doesn't want things that he wants. He'll compromise his values, his beliefs, his preferences time and time and time again, and then just hate himself. Or even worse than hate himself, he'll lose himself. I work with a lot of guys, a lot of my clients are 40s and 50s divorced, freshly divorced. And they just walk out of these marriages like, who the fuck am I? Because they've given themselves away one little piece at a time every day for decades. They've lost track of the original picture, if they ever knew what it was. Right? Or because of this ridiculous belief like, hey, if she loves me, I should adjust. Love should be enough. So I'll just adjust who I am to make sure that that statement's still true, that I don't need any boundaries in this relationship. I don't need to ask for anything or tell her off for any reason. And then men will get misogynistic and blame the woman for this. The woman do this to me. It's like, dude, whose choice was it to give yourself away? Whose choice was it to adjust? Whose choice was it to avoid conflict? Very unlikely it was her choice, right? If you gave it all away, then you can't say she took it. And all of this just leads to an ever-increasing disconnect, which is really hard to see because you guys are getting along all the time. It's pleasant all the time, comfortable, like good flatmates. So it's hard for you to say, this is really not working out. This is really unhealthy because there's no obvious overt signs. You're losing a little bit, one drip at a time, so you don't notice the change. Then suddenly, 10 years later, one of you wakes up and goes, I don't love you anymore. When did that happen? And the answer is one tiny bit at a time over all those years. So one of the hardest kind of beliefs changes that I had to face was understanding that love, really liking someone, whatever you want to call it, is not a relationship. The two are quite separate concepts. I can love somebody or something and have no relationship with it whatsoever. You might still love a dead relative, for example. You have no relationship with them, but you still love them. So you can see how love is separate. You can also have a relationship with someone that you absolutely despise. You could have a strong professional working relationship with someone at work who you would never be friends with, but you can get along all right to get the project done because you follow these boundaries and rules of the relationship. So you can see relationship, love, two separate things. And one does not guarantee the other. One does not cause the other to happen. But love will get eroded by the lack of a relationship. But the relationship is the protective shield around the love. If you guys want to still like each other in 10 years, you have to engage in a set of boundaries and principles that stop you guys from doing anything that will fuck that up. As the quote goes, you can't let them do things that will make you hate them, and vice versa. Because you can love someone, that doesn't mean that all of their behavior is something you want to tolerate. It's okay. That is not a contradiction. Loving someone doesn't mean everything they do is enjoyable to you and healthy. That's never going to be the case. Okay? Even like your kids, like the people you're most likely to have unconditional love for, they can still piss you off with their behavior. They can still do things that if they didn't ever stop doing that thing, you would start really resenting them and it would start hurting the love. The love is not bulletproof by any means. It's actually quite a fragile thing. The relationship needs to be the strong thing. The relationship has to be like, this is how we'll behave so that we don't hurt the love we have for each other. Okay. You got to look at divorces. Look at the 180 flip that people do so often when they get divorced. Look at them on their wedding day, so deeply in love, and then when they get divorced, they're fucking enemies. There's no one they hate more. There's no one they treat worse. Like, that's such a big flip. Well, that's because that original love didn't get protected. It wasn't an overnight 180. They slowly eroded into absolute contempt for each other. That's the risk you take. Do not rely on love. You got to understand that boundaries are not the same as hurting someone. They might not like what they are. They might not like talking about it. They might have a so-called bad reaction at first, but that's not what hurts a relationship. It's the lack of them that hurts a relationship. You are going to have conversations that are unpleasant for both of you. You're going to have to ask for things that they don't want to give you. You're going to have to ask them to stop things that they like doing. It doesn't mean you're always going to get your way either way, but you have to be able to state it. And this is the most simple, practical tip I can give you for getting started with this. Never be silent about what you like and what you don't like in the relationship. All right? You need to be able to learn to say, I like this behavior, I don't like this behavior. I want this, I don't want that. I prefer this, I'd rather not that. You have to be honest about all of those preferences all the time. That is the most basic, fundamental, simple version of setting boundaries. You're not even really asking them to behave in any particular way. You're just saying, like, my favorite stuff is this, and the stuff I can't stand is this. And now you have a choice as to whether or not you're going to do this stuff or this stuff more. I mean, half the resentment is dealt with just by saying it. There are a lot of things that your partner will do that they don't need to change, but they piss you off. And all that really needs to happen is you need to be able to say, this pisses me off every time it happens. Now, you can do that for the rest of your marriage. You can see, like, I know some couples in their 80s who have been together for decades, and they still bicker about the little things that they've always done. That's actually okay. That's perfectly healthy. That's fine. You don't have to enjoy everything your partner does, and they don't actually have to change it just because you don't enjoy it. But you need to be able to speak up about it. It needs to be clear how you feel about it. They need to always know, like, oh, this is going to make them mad. It's actually fine if you have that tension. That tension's good for sexuality. But if you start going quiet about it, you start pretending it's okay, that's dangerous. Right? And as long as you balance it out, if you say this I like and this I don't like, they're not going to get a sense of losing your love. They're just going to get a sense of, like, which parts of them are your favorite and which parts of them you're kind of putting up with as a trade-off for being with them. But then there are the things that are a deal breaker. Okay, and these are the things where they do actually have to change their behavior or the relationship's going to end both ways. And that doesn't mean you must ask someone to compromise who they are to be with you, but you need to put them in a position where if they're not going to change that, then you're not going to continue being with them. It's not a punishment or a threat. It's a safety thing. You guys are not right for each other. There's a couple, so tragic, a couple I know. They were together for 4 years before they had a conversation about whether or not they're going to have children. 4 years they waited for that conversation, only to discover one strongly wants them, one strongly doesn't. Deal breaker. Those two people cannot be together. That difference is too much to survive. They should have been having that conversation within the first week of meeting each other. Which is another reason this shit happens, is you think, I like this person so much, I'm not going to talk about any of my preferences because I don't want to ruin the vibe, I don't want to put them off. Well, it's a lot harder to leave them after 10 years than it is after 1 week, but either way, it's ending. You get to decide how long you want to drag it out. So if they have a thing about them that they're unwilling to change, and that thing is a deal breaker for you, and of course vice versa, then it's over. And it's better to find that out early rather than late. And you can really love someone, and that can still be a problem. Mark Manson talks about this. He calls it, God, what's the name for it? Friction. He says friction is something where you guys love each other, but this thing ruins it. It might be living on other sides of the world, long distance, and neither of you wants to move. You can be perfectly in love, a great fit for each other, lots of attraction, you connect really well, but that thing actually destroys the chance of a relationship. You can't have a relationship if neither of you is willing to move. That's friction. One of you wants kids, the other one doesn't. That's friction. One of you die hard this religion, the other one's die hard that religion, and these religions are at war with each other. Too much friction. All right, that's just not going to work out, because one of you would have to compromise your value system for it to work out, and that's just going to create resentment, self-loathing, depression. It's not going to work. So, love is not enough. That's the gist of that fucking rant. And this is all covered in section 2 of the boundaries course, where I talk about why we need boundaries to help you get over the idea that you could somehow scoot through a relationship without them. Okay. So let's move on to number 2 and see where that takes us. So number 2 is easygoingness kills attraction. It was one of the most painful wake-up calls of my life, because I thought being easygoing was attractive. I thought being funny and nice to be around, the best friend you ever had. I thought that's what girls would really be into, and they are, for comfort, but not for attraction, not for sexuality. We're going to talk about how you being easygoing is the reason that you guys have a dead bedroom, and might be the reason that one of you cheats, and so on. So what is easygoingness? First and foremost, it is a lie. No one is truly 100% easygoing. They might feel that that's true, but they've had to batter down their own belief system, their own preferences, to create that illusion. There's no one that doesn't care about anything. All right, that person, they check out. So if you're still here, you care about something. You do have a strong stance on certain positions. And so if you're giving the impression that you never have a strong take on any position, that you just go with the flow, anything's good, some kind of dishonesty is taking place here. What easygoingness really means is that you refuse to disagree in any way that might cause emotional distress. Okay, you just refuse to have a position or say anything that somebody would find upsetting. That's what being easygoing really means: an avoidance of conflict, a fear-based, cowardly avoidance of conflict that you sell to yourself by saying, I'm so nice to be around, I just go with the flow. You turn it into this noble thing. You make the lie noble. By going with the flow, what you really mean is everybody else has to lead and you're going to follow. Everybody else has to make decisions. I'm fine with whatever you say. It's your choice, your call, I'm good. Handing the burden of leadership and initiation over to them every time, making them do all the work while you just follow in their slipstream. This honorable thing that you're doing of being easygoing just means that somebody else has to be the boss. And if you're a guy who's with a gal, kind of masculine, feminine dynamic, and you're forcing them to lead and decide all the time, guess who the masculine one is? And if she doesn't want to be the masculine one, that's going to lead to problems. Because now she's going to feel like she's your parent. That's not good for sexual attraction. You never initiate because you're avoiding rejection. You're not easygoing, you're afraid of rejection. And you figured out a little hack. Hey, I never get rejected if I never ask for anything. I never get rejected if I never suggest an idea. I never get rejected if I just don't go for it. You figured out a little hack there. Hey, I can stay away from this thing at all times. So they have to set the scene. They have to go first. They have to take the risk all the time, that first step. Probably from the very beginning of the relationship, they initiated, right? And they're waiting for you to take over, and you're just not taking over. Now, they kind of like it at first because they get their way all the time, but in my experience, after about 3 weeks, that shit gets old. They start wanting you to do something, and then when you won't, they lose attraction instantly. You're pretending to remain calm. That's what easygoingness is. Pretending to have a shallow range of emotions where you just don't feel anything really extreme. You never get too angry. You never get confused. You never get sad. And you don't get too happy either, not overly excited. You're just cool in the middle. Bull fucking shit. No human is. Nobody is. Nobody stays in that narrow band of emotion. But some people can numb themselves into apathy by pretending they don't care long enough until they actually believe it, like method acting. That they can do. But don't pretend that's some healthy, authentic thing you're doing. So you take the stance as if nothing matters to you, and that just makes you inhuman. At first, it's like nice to be around, like, man, there's no drama with this guy. That's pretty nice. But after a while, you're like, does this guy care about anything? Is he pretending? Is he hiding very strong feelings? He's starting to look like a fucking psychopath. Like, this is scary serial killer shit now, right? And that switch happens a lot quicker than you might think. You refuse to take a stand on controversial issues. It's not that you don't have a position, it's just you refuse to reveal what it is. You might justify with, like, I see, both sides of the story, right? I just, I get what they're saying, it all makes sense to me. It's just, I can see it both sides. No, you actually have a position. You might see both sides of the story. At least that's the backwards justification you do to try and pretend like you don't take a position. But when all the dust is settled and you've heard all the arguments, you are more on one side than you are on the other. But this is a little trick to make it look like you're an intellectual, like you're really rational and you can see the big picture, when actually you're just scared to pick a side because you know the other side's going to be mad at you. And if nothing else, you use humor and distraction and kind of nonchalance just to prevent any emotional tension from coming up. And that's really what easygoingness is. It's the prevention of tension. That's all. It's not who you really are. It's not a representation of your true beliefs and feelings. It is a manipulative tactic to prevent anyone being able to experience tension in your presence. If you can't accept that, then I can't help you. Right? Because if you want to have a real relationship, being easygoing is not the way to do it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a strong position on everything that's ever brought up. But you do have to stop lying about your position and your feelings. So why doesn't easygoing lead to good relationships? Like, I think of all the things I'm going to talk about today, most people would instinctively think that easygoing is good for relationships. It certainly works out quite well for shallow or superficial friendships. So why wouldn't it work for relationships, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about why. And maybe it will make more sense to you. This is all shit that was revealed to me piece by piece and just blew my mind every time like a layer was peeled back. I was so proud of being easygoing, of not giving a shit about anything, being cool about everything, never causing a fuss. I was so proud of that. And when it was revealed what I was really doing and why people don't actually like that, it was like the whole world was turned upside down. Like all the rules I followed didn't work. And I could suddenly see it clearly. Like I'd been walking backwards my whole life thinking that that's the smartest way to walk. It was just a hurt to realize how many years I'd wasted using a method that wasn't true to who I was and didn't work anyway. So, why does being easygoing not work? First off, you have no character. Like I said about watching movies, we don't want to watch movies where the guy just does well all the time and nothing really emotional happens to him, the end. There is no movie that's ever succeeded with that plot line. For a reason. There's no character. There's nothing to be interested in. There's nothing to connect with. There's nothing that draws us. There's no attraction, right? You're comfortable to be around. Like a drink of water is good when someone's thirsty, but that doesn't mean that they're excited about water, okay? And once their thirst is quenched, it's like, what else is there? Anybody got a Coke? So once they've had their little drink of your comfort, the novelty wears off and you're just a nothing person now. You're an NPC, right? Non-playing character. You're just this background guy who just doesn't cause any ripples, has no shape or form. He's just whatever you want him to be, which means he's nothing at all. And people do notice this. This is actually very similar to psychopathy. You just take the shape of the vessel. You're like a gas. You just fill whatever shape is put in front of you, but you don't have any form of your own. There's nothing for people. You're smooth. There's nothing for people to grab onto and go, this is who Dan is. There's like, Dan's whatever. He's whatever is happening at the moment. He's everything. He's nothing. And if you think that's going to lead to attraction and deep connection and intimacy, then you're as naive as I was. Attraction requires tension and emotional range. One of the biggest breakthroughs of my life that finally solved my massive romance drought was understanding that it's okay if the girl gets mad at me. It's okay if she's offended. It's okay if she's confused. It's okay even if she's bored, as long as there's a range. She doesn't need to be happy and pleasant and content all the time. That kills attraction, but she'll like to come and hang out with me now and then for like that oasis, that drink of water, but she doesn't want to be with this all the time. It takes about 3 weeks, I found out, for her to figure that out. And then she starts looking for more emotional range, as she should, because the guy with no emotional range is fucking terrifying. What is going on underneath the surface? Is there nothing underneath, or is he hiding everything? Both of those are incredibly scary and dangerous. And their instinct goes, you know what? I got to get away from this guy. On paper, he looks easygoing. He's so nice. And they feel guilty. I see girls making content about this all the time, like, I left the nice guy, and everyone gives these girls shit about it. What they can't articulate is, I left the guy who was incredibly dangerous, but I can't tell you why. I can't tell you how I know that. Well, this is how you know that, ladies. He has no range, which means he's pretending to not be a human. And anyone pretending to not be a human is probably quite a dangerous person. You got to remember, I used to rehabilitate and manage murderers, lots of them. Okay, so when I say someone's a dangerous person, it's not like some metaphor. I mean, about half of the murderers I ever worked with killed their partner, and that's the only crime they've ever committed. And before that, everyone said he's such a nice guy. Okay? That's why I take this shit so seriously. Easygoingness is a ticking time bomb for built-up resentment and rage that will just explode one day for no reason. Well, not no reason, a whole lifetime of reasons, but it will just explode unexpectedly. And girls can actually sense a guy who's like that. If they're even remotely healthy and mentally kind of well, a girl will sense that risk, and she'll just get a distaste, a loss of interest and attraction. That's actually her body trying to protect her from this threat. But you didn't know that, huh? When I found that out, I'm like, oh my God, they're right, I am dangerous. Like, and not in some sexy way. I'm dangerous in a like lock him up kind of way. And I didn't want to be. So if you don't have that tension, if nothing else, you're just bland. You're asexual. This is how the friend zone happens. That's why you're like, why does she like me so much, but she dates other guys? Well, because you're nothing. There's nothing to you. What would she be attracted to? Exactly. Okay, easygoingness. That's one trait. What else you got? Nothing else? Just the one? Why would she be all in on guys who only got one? When the other guy's got 7 is equally enjoyable to be with. Why would she pick the one? Hey, makes no sense. And also, you make your partner insecure. You know, they start to feel like they're the crazy one. It's a kind of weird gaslighting to be easygoing, because what you're putting out there is the belief or the claim that life isn't a big deal, that you shouldn't get upset about stuff, that everything's okay. That is absolutely not the case, right? Life is endless suffering. Ask any philosopher. To be human is to suffer. We are built in such a way that is in conflict with the world around us. And that's when world's going good. Like, look at the world these days. If you feel nothing about what's happening in the world these days, something is very wrong with your system. Your radar should be pinging threats all the time. So now your partner thinks that they're the crazy one because they're just having normal human fucking reactions to the stresses of life, and you don't. And everyone's saying how you're the rock, and you probably take pride in that. Like, I'm the secure one in the relationship. I'm the lighthouse in the storm that they can come to for safety. Say, no, mate. You're the bland psychopath, and they're just having normal human emotions. But now you've gaslit them into thinking that they're mental, and now they don't want to be with you because it lowers their self-worth. Yeah. They will actually feel like they're not good enough for you, like they're bringing you down with their craziness. They don't realize, hey, you're the crazy one, or you're both crazy, probably. Everyone's fucking crazy. I used to love really insecure, unstable women. They were my favorite because I could be the fixer. I could be the calm in the storm. I could be the one where everyone's like, oh, she's lucky she landed Dan, he'll sort her out. Keeping my secret like, hey, I'm just as fucked up as she is, but I'm really good at hiding it. So that's a plus, right? People also, they'll just resent you because you don't care about things that are important to them. So many of the breakups that I see are over weird things like politics or money. And it's not that they need to have the same beliefs. They just want you to give a shit about something, anything, to show that like the world matters to you. Especially if you think about, say, a woman's position, she's considering having children with you. She needs to know that you're going to give a shit about those kids. And if she sees that you never give a shit about anything that she considers important, what threat is going to come up in her head about having children with you? She may not consciously think it. Odds are she will, and she'll talk to her girlfriends about it. But it's actually quite scary to have kids with a person who doesn't care about anything. I'd rather have kids with somebody who cares too much, right? At least they'll take care of the kids. At least they'll manage some of the threats. As somebody very wise once said to me that really clicked a light bulb on for me once, if you stand up to her, she'll believe you can stand up for her. She needs to see some spine. She needs to see that you give a shit enough to take some risks to protect what you care about. If you don't care about anything, she's got no proof that you're willing to like put your body on the line to protect your family. And that's going to start killing her attraction because her body's going to be like, we need a different partner to have a family with. This one can't be trusted. And people just trust you just because they're not stupid. They know that we do care about stuff. They know that nobody doesn't care about anything. They know nobody is really easygoing. People have a deep instinctual understanding of that somebody who doesn't care about anything is highly suspicious. Once you get over how nice they are to be around, you're going to sense that there's some sort of suppression, some dishonesty, or maybe just nihilism and like bleak depression going on. But there's no way that what you're seeing is healthy and confident. Healthy and confident is not easygoing. You might be calm and rational with how you deal about the things, but you care greatly about certain things, and you simply don't care about other things. Easygoing is not caring. Like if I didn't care about something, I'd say, get that out of my life. I'm not going to be easygoing about it. I'm going to be like, I don't want that on my table. I've got what I want. Leave me alone. Easygoing is like, whatever, anything, everything. I don't give a shit. That's not the same. Okay. So somebody who really genuinely doesn't care about something, they're actually quite strong about that if they're assertive and confident. Right? An easygoing person isn't strong about anything at any scale. So they know that it's scary and it's unattractive. So you know that's not going to go well in a relationship. And when you rationalize and try to calm everyone down all the time and make them see the logical reason why they should never be upset about everything, it's fucking obnoxious. It's annoying. It feels controlling. It feels suppressing, oppressive. When somebody's constantly rationalizing everything you're feeling and trying to get you to not feel it, if nothing else, it's irritating. And it's amazing how many relationships are destroyed by just being irritating. That's enough. So you're not just being easygoing, you're also trying to make other people be easygoing. You might do it in subtle ways where you just say, it doesn't matter because of blah, blah, blah. You just kind of throw it out there that people's things that they care about are super important to them, just don't actually matter. You just like dismiss their strong beliefs and their cares. And you might overtly try to tell them that they're too upset and they shouldn't be caring about this stuff. And all that does, it's like an insult to who they are as a person. And so, one of the big ones for me was humor. I used to use humor all the time to keep everything easy going because I was good at being funny, frankly. And I could adjust my humor to everybody's potential taste. So I could like make you laugh no matter what your sense of humor was. I could figure it out very quickly and get onto it. And I just make people laugh all the time. So I'm getting this feedback, like positive, I thought, feedback all the time. Like, hey, Dan's a funny guy. I didn't sort of pick up on the idea, like, nobody wants comedy all the time. Like, people go to a comedy show, but then they do the rest of their life, they do other stuff for a reason. We don't want to be just nonstop laughter, okay? But I was like Chandler from Friends. I was just cracking jokes about everything and anything all the time, so conversation could never get serious. And I was annoying people, but I couldn't see that I was annoying them because they were laughing. They couldn't help but laugh, but then they would avoid me or ghost me or cheat, go somewhere where there's a more range. I'd be deprioritized. They only bring me in when they wanted the funny guy, when they want the comedy show, but when they don't want the show, I'm not getting invited. Took me a long time to realize that some people actually want to have serious conversations. Some people want to feel something about shit that isn't just happiness. And I was trying to prevent that from happening, so they didn't want me around all the time. It's so obvious now when I look at it, but when I was in the moment, this made no sense to me. So, how do we stop doing this? How do we break out of this easygoing trap, this lie, and bring more range in so that somebody can have a character that they actually can fall in love with and feel loyal to and want to prioritize? Yeah. It's actually very similar to what I said in the last section, but it really comes down to showing your preferences. The difficulty with being an easygoing guy is you're not going to know what your preferences are. You're going to really struggle with that. Okay. And one of the ways that you can overcome this struggle is to realize that your preferences have been suppressed your whole life. And so you need to just pay attention to the tiny little hint of what it might be and understand that that's being suffocated under years of conditioning. So let's say, I don't know, you take any kind of major political stance, I don't know, pro-life or pro-choice, something like that. And you're like, oh, I see both sides of the story. Just go, wait, which one am I very slightly more in favor of? Just like if you put a gun to my head and said, choose one, which one would I choose? Even if I'm like, oh, but I'm not really that strong. That'll help you see where you actually quite strongly have a position, but it's been muted over the years. It's what I call the 51% rule. I talk about it in the course. If you are more than 50% for or against something, then consider it 100%. Right? So if I'm 51% pro-life, then I'm all pro-life and I should act accordingly. If I'm 51% entrepreneurship over being an employee, then I should advocate for starting your own business. And understand that it's not that that's exactly true, but if I go hard on it, I'll find my true position by backing down from there. But if I start really weak or not calling a stance at all, I'll never find my true position. So you are not allowed, if you want to really fix this, you are not allowed to say that you're okay with anything, that you see both sides of the story, that you don't mind either way. You have to pick a team. Even if it's something as innocuous as what to have for dinner. Someone's like, you want pizza? And you're like, yeah, whatever you want. You're not allowed to say that. You have to say yes or no to pizza. And if you're saying yes, be like, fuck yeah, pizza's the thing I want more than any other food in the world. And if that's not true, then say, no, I don't want pizza. That will start to give you character. One way to look at it is who you are is really just your preferences. Your preferences are the blueprint of who you are. Like if we could list every for and against, like, dislike, preference you have, it'd be this huge list, millions of things strong, every type of ice cream, music, how people behave, what route you'd rather drive to work or whatever, every preference, it would be unique. There'd be nobody else in the world with that exact set. Not even your twin would have that exact set. And that's what establishes who you really are. It's like a fingerprint times a billion. So if you can show people that on-off switch about every single issue, they can see who you are. And then if they like who you are, they'll keep liking you and you won't lose that love. They won't lose that interest. But if you're just adjusting to any given moment, then you have no position. You're not a person. They can only like you in that moment and then they'll forget about you. You've got to allow awkward silences. I talk a lot about this in the course. You've got to let people have their feelings. Stop trying to fix people's emotions. Emotions are not a problem. You just don't like being around them. That's your problem, not theirs. If they're sad, let them be sad. If they're disappointed, let them be disappointed. If they're angry at something, let them be angry. So long as they're not hurting you physically or doing some sort of, irreparable harm, leave them to it. I mean, if you want to be easygoing, it means you don't try to change anyone's mood, right? So don't. Don't fix them. Don't try to cheer them up. Don't try to calm them down. Let them be whatever they are. And then that way they won't feel like you're squashing them. And try to suggest rather than ask. I think one of the number one things you can do to get out of the easygoing trap is don't try to get that validation of the idea before you act on it. So rather than saying like, what would you like for dinner? Say, I want to have a burger for dinner. Like, put your suggestion out there, initiate, lead, right? Go first. You like someone at your dance class, don't hang near them hoping they'll say hi. Go say hi, go do the first move, right? You don't have to carry the whole load after that, but take the risk that you're making other people take all the time. You know, if something comes on the news and you feel strongly about it, don't go, how do you feel about this? Say, I feel badly about this, and then see how they're going to react. Like, call that shot. And this way you'll have character. This is what's attractive. This is what people will end up loving you for. Even if they react badly in the moment, you're giving them range, right? The person who's going to love you is also going to be mad at you, disappointed in you, you know, sad about what you've done, guilty. You're going to make them feel everything. And that's actually what's going to create the really strong connection. If they just feel happy, then you're just a dancing clown. Okay. And yeah, for those of you who have the course, that's all covered in section 7, where I talk about all the mistakes to avoid when you're setting boundaries and confronting people. Okay. So this brings us to the last section. Nice guys are obsessed with being seen as a good person. And when they're worried that that's not happening, they get defensive. And if there's anything more off-putting than someone being defensive, I don't know what it is. I mean, that's kind of worse than even being creepy. There's something about somebody getting defensive that makes us pity them. And pity is poison to love, connection, and attraction. It's very hard to love someone you pity, right? Pity is not love. But nice guys are so obsessed with managing their reputation, being seen as a good guy, that they will not let any threat go unchallenged. And they'll qualify themselves and prove themselves all the time. They'll do this in some very sort of overt ways, but they'll also do this in this kind of subtle ways. But either way, people can feel it. It's very, very detrimental to your love life. We're going to talk about that bit now. So what is being defensive? Defensive is really just an obsession with trying to prove that you're right, that you're a good person, also trying to prove that you're not a bad person, that you're not wrong. You're essentially trying to control how people feel about you. You're trying to make sure that they see you the way you want to be seen, rather than letting them come to their own conclusions, especially not letting them do something or see you in a certain way that you would consider to be incorrect. Nice guys are kind of obsessed with about the correctness of the way they're seen, even though the way they want to be seen is not who they truly are. They're very obsessed with people seeing that correctly. So they almost always take everything personally. Both positive and negative, they see themselves as the cause of how other people feel about them. They easily rise to the bait. They're easily wounded, very sensitive, even though they might not show it. Every kind of praise or criticism you throw their way lands hard, and they feel a need to do something with that information. Either store the praise and double it, or correct the criticism and remove it. They just can't let it go, because their whole self-worth is based on external validation. A nice guy is based entirely, self-worth, his confidence is based entirely on other people liking him. If he gets a whiff that that's not happening, he immediately goes into fight or flight response. So there's all sorts of behaviors that come from this. I mean, nice guys actually raise their voice and throw tantrums. That's a bit rare, but it does happen, or it happens occasionally, what we call a puke, where you're really nice all the time, then you snap and rah, just because somebody misunderstood you a little bit. It can be threats. They're kind of passive-aggressive type threats, like, oh, I guess we just can't spend any time together then. It's kind of guilt trips, sulking, stonewalling. They can be quite nasty things, aggressive things like that. But they can also be the more defensive, passive things, apologizing and backing down, changing who you are so that you stop getting that critique. Just maybe avoiding a person, avoiding a topic of discussion, avoiding acknowledging something, hoping it will go away. Distraction, changing the topic, trying to get away from anything that makes them look unpleasant. Like if you're talking about a topic where a nice guy feels stupid, he'll change the topic so that he doesn't sound stupid, that kind of thing. Even false confession, a guy admitting to being wrong when he knows he didn't do anything wrong, just so the thing comes to an end and it doesn't get too big. He doesn't have to like. It's ironic. It's a type of defensiveness to actually submit like that. A nice guy will answer questions even though he doesn't want to because he feels like he has to. He'll answer questions even when he knows that they're in bad faith. Like he'll rise to that bait, take on that challenge because he just desperately feels threatened and tries to reduce the threat rather than just letting bad things happen. He just can't seem to do that. And then, of course, rationality, the key weapon, like pushing back on anyone's upset feelings or negative views of them by just pummeling them with rational information as to why they're wrong. All of this is defensive. The nice guy feels like he's doing the right thing. He feels like he's protecting himself. He feels like, nice guys have these kind of arguments with their partners all the time, and they think this actually helps the relationship to have an argument like this. They really believe that, like, this is the best thing to do, that if they just said nothing and let it go, terrible things would happen, abandonment, so on. But, I used a lot of humor as a defense mechanism, kind of like making everything a joke so nobody could say anything serious about me. I used a lot of self-deprecating humor. So I kind of like was the first to say the bad thing about me so that others couldn't, that kind of thing. So I was always trying to diffuse people. And whenever somebody said something about me that was wrong, I just would like correct them with this like really strong, articulate, witty argument. I couldn't just let them be wrong about me, even though sometimes they weren't wrong. They're actually right. I just didn't like what they believed. So why are we like this? Why do we get defensive? Well, ultimately is we're treating harmless things as if they're threats. And that actually turns them into threats. Somebody being upset with you is not a threat. It looks like one. But actually, you trying to put that fire out is just throwing gasoline on it. Now you've confirmed that it's a thing. You think of the difference. Someone's just like, oh, you're always leaving the dishes out. And you're like, no, I didn't do it on Wednesday and Saturday. Now they're like, oh, somebody's defensive about dishes. I think you were doing something wrong. But if you're like, yeah, look, if that's what you believe, then that's fine. Now they're going to doubt their own version of events. I'm not saying you should gaslight people. But if you push back, you actually create the resistance to push things up. So the thing that wouldn't have been a threat, if you just like, let that go past, look, believe whatever you want. If you hadn't touched it, it would have stayed this low-level thing. It's like negative comments on the internet. I saw one on just now, actually. I get these comments on YouTube. This guy writes, I'm not a nice guy, so I'll be thumbs down and not interested in this. That's why I don't respond to that. Because if I was to respond to that, now he's in a conversation, it's just going to get worse. It's better just let that die on the internet, a waste of typing. But if you actually respond, you throw gas on the fire. So now you're turning non-threats into threats. And when you respond, you set this frame, I must respond. If I've responded, it must mean that this is valid, what's coming up. So if someone accuses you of something and you start trying to defend yourself, the message you're saying is that this is a real accusation that deserves a lot of time and attention. It's almost admitting guilt. Like the innocent person's got nothing to prove, so why are you proving yourself? It sets up that frame with people. It makes you look guilty. It makes you feel guilty. Like, when a cop pulls you over and you see the blue flashing lights and you're like, oh my God, like you've done something, right? That defensive feeling. If innocent people have nothing to prove, then you're contradicting that by proving something. And of course, you're easily manipulated. Nice guys do quite often end up with abusive or at least quite dysfunctional partners who communicate with things like guilt and rage. And it's because it works, right? Manipulators are attracted to an easy win. Like I used to work with criminal offenders, many of them who are scam artists and manipulators, gang leaders, the kind of people who can manipulate anyone. They're not looking for a hard fight, okay? They want an easy win. They're not out there like, who's the toughest person to deal with? They're like, who's the fucking person who's just going to lay down as easy as possible? That's who they're looking for. And so if they can see that they can get a rise out of you, that you'll always react, they're very attracted to that. And that's why you attract abusers and users. If you do not react, if you're unreactive, non-defensive, sure of yourself, you just let other people think whatever they want, it's very unattractive to a manipulator. There's nothing for them to grab onto. They push and nothing happens. They're going to move on quite quickly. So one way to figure out, like, why do I always end up with people who treat me like shit? Because you let them. Because you're reactive. And there's the potential solution right there. If you weren't reactive, this would stop happening. I know people think I'm a victim blamer when I say this, but I'm a victim responsibility guy. All right? Like, people are bad, that's true. People do harmful things, that's true. But it is not evenly spread. Victims are not chosen at random. You also attract the negative behavior by being easy to do it to. So there's some solution on your side that can happen. You don't need to wait for bad people to stop existing, because that's never going to fucking happen. Manipulators and abusers will continue until the end of time. If anything, there seems to be getting more of them. Seems to be getting worse. Bullies aren't going anywhere. Bullies run the planet, okay? You need to become immune to bullies if you want to enjoy this life. You can't wait for them to turn into good people. And you got to understand that they are not going to want to work with you, work on you, push you, if you can't be moved. So if they are attracted to you, it means you must be quite movable. Most of the time, there are some exceptions. So you're attractive to bullies, drama queens, psychopaths, just because you try to defend yourself and you think defending yourself is a good idea. It's like sending up a signal flare to these people. And you undermine and disrespect yourself. You know, there's one way to look at it is every time you speak outwardly, you're also sending a message inwardly. Okay, it's a little psychological trick. There's a frame, like I said. So if I say, let's say you accuse me of something. Well, you're such a fucking douchebag. You're a scammy wannabe coach. You say something like that. And I say, no, I'm not. What I'm saying to myself is, I need to be defended because I'm not sure. That's the message that goes in when I say that outwards. If I try to prove something to you, I'm saying something needs to be proved. So now I've actually created self-doubt just by saying that. If I was 100% sure you're wrong, there's nothing for me to say. If someone comes up to me and says, the moon's made of cheese, I'm not going to be like, no, look at the telescope. I'm just going to be like, well, that's wrong, so good luck to you. But as soon as I start trying to prove that the moon's not made of cheese, I'm now creating doubt about what the moon's made out of. I'm actually opening up this discussion as if it's not ridiculous. What's that Game of Thrones saying? Like, lions don't worry about the opinions of sheep or whatever. I know that's a bit fucking bro douchebag. But if you're letting their opinion become something that actually is a valid challenge that you now need to do your research on and, disprove, you're actually validating their argument, which invalidates yourself. As soon as you defend yourself, you're saying, I need to be defended. And you feel that. You feel that. That is the cause of self-doubt. Self-doubt wasn't there originally. Think about how often you're sure about something being a good thing to do, you're sure that you're right, and then someone challenges it, and then you try to correct them, and now you're not sure about it anymore. That was the reason. If you just not tried to correct them, just be like, if you want to believe that, go live your life, mate. Enjoy. That would have actually been validating yourself. You're also letting emotions control you rather than self-regulating. So every time you feel guilty, attacked, or accused, you feel self-doubt, you're being reactive to your own emotions. Not just them, you're being reactive. You're defending yourself from your own feelings. Rather than just going, okay, what should I do with this feeling? What's a good use of this feeling? Healthy behavior. You gotta remember, attacks need fuel. For someone to get into a raging comment war on YouTube, you have to respond to their comments. If you don't, nothing happens. So by being defensive, even with your partner, you're trying to prove to her, no, I have done my fair share of the housework. See, I did this, this, and this. You don't realize that just by making that list, you've made it worse. If you instead go like, I can see you're pretty upset with me, and just go, hey, this is a you thing. We're not even going to talk about the dishes. I'm so sure about my fair contribution to the housework that we're just going to talk about how you feel, because that's all that's happening here. Now, again, I'm not saying gaslight them. If you haven't done your fair share of the homework, the housework, then own up to it. Often you feel defensive because they're right. Somebody accuses you of something, you're like, no. You're like, maybe a little bit, yes. It'll be so much easier to be like, yeah, you could be right there. Like if someone goes, you never do your fair share of the housework. And you're like, yeah, I could see how you'd think that. Yeah, there might be some truth to that. That's actually going to really de-escalate the argument, and then you can find out the truth of the matter once the emotions have calmed down a bit for everybody. But if you start trying to prove them wrong, the emotions go up, not down. And now you're just having an irrational conversation. So let me give you a couple of practical tips for dealing with defensiveness. Which, by the way, for those of you who are single, there's a guy, John something. I'm going to have to look it up. I keep forgetting his last name. He's a comedian, kind of chubby guy with black beard. Fuck's his name, John something. Anyway, it recently came out last year that he was highly attractive, that women really liked him, and everyone was kind of baffled because he doesn't look conventionally attractive, what everyone expects. So they did some polling and asked these women, like, what are you so into with this guy? Similar thing happens with Jack Black, actually. People are like, why is so many girls into him? And the thing that kept coming back was he's non-defensive. So if you're a single guy and you want to be more attractive, completely putting an end to defending yourself will take you a lot of the way there. The guy is okay with whatever anybody thinks of him. It's not the same as easygoing, where you tolerate disrespect, but where you're just like, look, you believe whatever you want. I'm not going to try to change your mind. I know what I am. You can figure it out for yourself. That approach, and being able to not be self-deprecating, but admit to your faults, your weaknesses, your flaws, your lack. Not with shame, but just be like, yeah, no, you got me there. Yep, that's true. Somebody's just like, oh my God, you are just so lazy. And you're like, yeah, I'm pretty lazy. That's non-defensive. You just own the thing, right? That is so much more attractive than the guy who's just like, fuck you, I'm the fucking man, tries to prove it to everyone. That's so unattractive. Well, it is attractive, but only to very insecure, unstable people. You're only going to attract nightmare partners with that kind of behavior, peacocking. Right? The mature guy doesn't give a shit what you think. He lets you just have your opinions, and that's very attractive to healthy people. On that note, how to be more or less defensive, how to be more non-defensive. The number one practical tip I can give you is just fucking pause, okay? The more emotional you feel, the longer it should take you to respond. The opposite will happen inside you. You'll be this urge to respond quickly. You'll feel this control of the situation slipping away, like, oh no, they're believing these things about me. I got to dive on it. You'll even interrupt them as they're speaking to not let them finish the thought. Do the opposite. Let them say everything they've got to say, and then when they're done, still don't say anything. Stay silent until your breathing comes under control, until your heart rate goes down, until you've really processed what they've said, put aside the content and looked underneath why they're saying that. Are they trying to manipulate you? Are they just emotionally, agitated and they can't control their communication? Like, what's really happening that isn't really about you? Because then if you respond from that place, it's going to be a much more calm, reassured, secure, non-defensive reaction. So really, if you remember nothing else from the whole workshop, pausing when things are getting tense instead of reacting quickly, game changer. You might need to do nothing else but that to really turn your relationships around. Let's say you feel that they've actually maliciously attacked you. Let's say you can feel that they're actually trying to do some damage. This isn't just dysfunction on their part or misinterpretation on your part. Like, they're shooting at you. Try waiting once they've done talking as if they haven't finished. It's a very, very powerful technique. Let's say somebody mocks you in front of the group. They're like, oh yeah, Dan, he never fucking blah, blah, blah. You just be like, go on. What else? Like, continue talking. It kills the momentum of that kind of bullying vibe. This isn't the same as staring in shock and being silently frozen, but just like patiently, like, please. You might even say, like, please go on, continue. It kind of kills it because they're needing a reaction, and you're saying, like, you can't be done. It's the underlying frame is kind of like, I know you're better than this, so you must not be finished talking, because there's no way that's the thing you want to say. So I'll let you keep going, let you kind of clean that thought up a bit. It's also something to do with people who love you. If they say something really nasty, just be like, I'm going to give them a minute to think about what they just said and see if they want to do a second draft. I've noticed this happens quite often with my daughter. She'll say something really extreme. She's only 5 years old, and she'll say, like, I hate you. I'll just look at her like, go on. She's like, well, I don't hate you. I'm just mad at you. I'm like, there you go. That's what you're really feeling. So I'll just let you, let's discard the first thing you said. We'll keep the second one. This kind of, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're better than this, right? One of my favorite ones is actually to do the very opposite of what you want to do or feel like doing, which is let them think that they won. There's no harm in it. Just hands up, okay, you win, mate. I forfeit. I saw a great example on the internet a while ago. It was like a meme. Some guy was mocking an MMA fighter in the comments. He was trolling him, giving him shit about being shitty at fighting. And the MMA fighter said something like, "Why don't you come here and meet me face to face and say that?" And the guy responded like, "No, you would kick my ass. I don't want to see you face to face." He just admitted like, "I'm not going to beat you in a fight." So no, thank you. I'm out. And you can do that when someone starts challenging you and clearly trying to compete with you. Some guy's trying to like make you look bad in front of the girls, like, "Oh, this guy, man, he's not as fucking this as me or that as me." And you just go, "Yeah, you're the champion, mate. You got the gold medal in that one. Just you won." So I'm like, "Come on, I challenge you to an arm wrestle. You know what? I forfeit. You can keep the medal. You're the gold medal standard. I absolutely, I'll sign something saying you're stronger than me. Whatever stops this conversation from happening, I sign to it. You win." It's very deflating for someone who's trying to get a one up because you refuse to play the game. Works very well in office politics. You can just say, "Look, I don't want to play this one. You guys win. I'll just go do the shit task that nobody wants to do. I'm not going to try and play these games." Right? It's actually more powerful than trying to win the game. One of my favorites, you need to get into a really calm place to do this one, is just address the motives curiously rather than what they're saying. So ignore the content, the words they actually use, and try to get to why they're saying it. You might say something like, "I wonder what would make you say something like that." Or like, "Wow, it's interesting that you said that. What were you trying to achieve there?" Or a great one is, "What were you hoping would happen when you said that?" Or, "What were you hoping I'd feel when you said that?" This is great for both enemies and friends. So if someone loves you and you say something like that, then their answer will show that they're not actually trying to hurt you. "I just wanted you to see my point of view." Okay. But an enemy has been called out, like, "You were trying to make me feel guilty." They might even admit to it. Being like, "Okay, so you were actually trying to hurt me. Is that what you're telling me?" And this way, you're making the conversation about their motives rather than about you. It's a great way to remove the argument about you. Like, you are not up for discussion, but their shitty behavior is now. They just brought up that discussion. You're going to have it. You can admit to being hurt. Being vulnerable is very powerful for defensiveness. You just let go of the defense. You take your armor off and show them the wound. Just go, "Wow, that was a horrible thing to say. That really hurt my feelings." It's funny how powerful this is with bullying. Bullies want you to not say that, but have the hurt feelings, right? Bullies want you to be injured, but they don't want you to admit to everyone that you're injured because now they look like a dick. They look like the bad guy. They want you to pretend that you're okay, that you're cool with it until you break out crying and can't hide it anymore. But if you're just like, "Wow, that was really nasty," like that kept me up at night. That was a really horrible thing to say. And you talk about it objectively, like they definitely did something wrong and you're right to be hurt by it. It's really good with people who do bullying banter. You get this a lot in the trades where guys will rip on the new apprentice. He'll get upset. They'll be like, "Oh, someone's sensitive." And what he often fails to do is go, "Yeah, I am. So it's quite horrible that you did that knowing that I'm sensitive." So you can just turn it back on them like that. Like, "Yeah, I'm definitely sensitive and that hurt me. And yet you're still doing it. That's interesting. What kind of person still does that? Are you sadistic?" You can put it on them like, "What kind of person are you to hurt someone you know is sensitive? To hurt me when you know it hurts me?" Like, you don't try to justify being hurt and saying it's fear that you're hurt or anything like that. You just turn it back on them. Or a funny one, I've never really used this much, but I really want to. I just don't get a chance too much these days. Just ask them to repeat it slowly, as if you didn't hear what they said properly. Just, "Can you say it one more time really slowly?" And now the thing they threw at you has to get laid out. It's particularly good in front of an audience. You'd be like, "Okay, I did hear you right. Wow." Like, "I was hoping I heard you wrong there, but you actually said that. Holy shit." Or you can calmly ask for evidence, like you're a lawyer. You can say, "And what is this based on?" Like, "You could be right. I just want to know what it's based on." Put them in a position where they're trying to prove their claim rather than you trying to defend yourself, right? Like, you're innocent until proven guilty, so you don't even take the stand. They have to lay out the case, and so you act like the lawyer asking them to present their case. You don't even challenge it. You just get them to keep presenting more and more of their evidence, right? Let them present the whole evidence. Just go, "Oh, okay. Guess that's why you see it that way." Just let it go. So there's much more than that, but I can see we've gone way over time. I'm going to wrap it up there. Like I said, these were the three biggest mistakes I used to make in relationships, along with some of the practical tips. I hope this has been helpful for some of you guys. It might help you turn things around a little bit with the mystery of relationships that should be going well because it feels good, but they're not working out. And like I said, this all comes from my Healthy Boundaries course. If you want that course, the link will be in the comments, or you can just get in touch with me, dan@brojo.org. The link I put there has got a 50% discount that lasts in the next 5 days. That should last. But frankly, if you get in touch with me, I'll send you the link and you can get it sorted.